All right, I'd like to get the meeting started. Call the meeting to order. Please rise for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. I know it's a little snowy. We got a couple of minute late start here, but we're on. Steve, yeah, it looks like we're good.
We're good.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
Okay, first order of business is, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting.
Motion made.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any questions, concerns?
Nope.
Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the agenda for today's meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the December 11th meeting. I'll entertain a motion to accept those minutes as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second, I
I'll
guess.
That's you.
They're mine.
That's you, Frank.
They're my minutes.
He does.
Discussion.
None.
None.
Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approval of the minutes from the December 11th meeting, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is public comments. We have no one here in the room, so we can move on. I will close the floor for public comments. Next item is a review and discussion of December 2024 monthly financials. Just an FYI, we got them late yesterday. So if you haven't had a chance to go through them, in detail, I understand. There are a couple of things that maybe we can do while we've got time and we're here. Maybe we can do it on the fly a little bit. And if there's any follow-up, then I'll take the initiative to field any questions after this meeting and then put them all together. And then we can send them over to John and his team if we've got any other questions. So why don't we start like we usually do and get up to page 1. It looks like we are now positive year to date of 660,000. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. All right. The second page is the summary of the operating. That's usually standard, standard from year to year. I'm sorry, month to month. So the next item is the operating results, and where John summarizes them. I had a question on if you look at the expenses at the bottom line on Yacht Club, it says services and supplies of 7,000. I just wanted to kind of know what the heck that was. That's a little bit of outside. All right, see where it says. So I'll make unless you have a concern, I'm going to make a question out of that one too. What was that?
All right.
What was that number? Okay. And then if you look at one line above that, Rec and Parks, on the revenue side, it was 56,000 to the good for special events. And just there's more, no concern, just a curiosity. What was that special event that was, because it's nice to have a level of revenue. It's certainly not this time of year. It's not a camp, or unless it was a timing issue, which I know John and the team like to do every now and then just to make sure things are smooth. What is that?
It says.
Oh, it's that. Okay. Anything else on the operating results page? All right. Next item is net out by department. Any thoughts? Any observations? I kind of did go through this. So yeah, if I one of the things I wanted to point out, if you look at the net ops on police, is 11K to the negative side, okay, because on the monthly actuals. But if you look at the year to date variance, they're plus 28K, in net op. So I think that from what I read from that, and again, I'll just want to confirm with John, it's like, they brought on additional officers and got additional equipment and covered additional shifts, but we're able to still stay, within, actually ahead of budget year to date. So, now clearly with the, addition of several officers, which is a good thing, that number will go down a little bit, but certainly, anything that's on budget with something as important as the police department is fine. I just pointed it out. Just wanted to say that that's they're managing that environment very good. And then on the opposite side, unfortunately, if you look down at the Yacht Club, the net up for the month of December was down 10K. And then overall, the entire year to date, we're down 187K to budget. All right, again, just want to stipulate, those are not losses. They are just numbers that are compared to what the budget was and compared to the year to date numbers from the previous year. But anything else on the net operating for December? All right.
I don't.
Don, anything on your side?
Nope, everything's good.
Okay. Operating summary, I had a question. If you look at the bottom line on the month actuals, it was 25K better than, or greater than budget. So I wanted to know what those other costs were that were 25K hit to the operating summary. Any other thoughts or questions on that one? Okay, I'll ask, okay, and I'll make a question out of that one. Okay, next item, if you're following along, is pickleball. Okay. No real issues there. I didn't see anything that stands out. Looks like we had a little decrease in the wage expense, but I'm sure that's probably just a scheduling, issue. And again, it's a small number, so I'm not worried about it. Any questions on the pickleball summary?
Hey, Doug, I don't have a question on the financial, but how do we address, I saw we got an email from one of the residents concerning the proposed pricing changes, and didn't know how that gets addressed and who's responsible, and do we get back to that lady?
So, Don, good question. So that's actually now been pushed to a board issue. In other words, if you follow through on the process that's happened, it's, the GM and his staff prepare the budget. We take a look at it and make recommendations. If any revisions happen, then the GM will go back and then he'll present that to the board. And then the board is looking at that and deciding whether or not that needs to make, any changes need to be made based on a variety of things, customer input, a business case, so on and so forth. So at the risk of sounding like, hey, it's not my problem, it's really because of the process, it's now at the board level. And it's for the board to decide what it is that they may or may not need to do in order to address, a concern by a citizen. The way I understand it right now, the single fee for racket sports is where things are right now. I've heard arguments on both sides, and at this point, I'm just curious to see what the what the board decides. I mean, I think we'll certainly need to support that, but again, it's now a board issue per se.
Okay, got it. Understood. That makes sense. Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Sure. Now, since we're still talking about racket sports, the next item was tennis. If you look, actually, I wanted to point out that tennis, believe it or not, which I wasn't sure how they were doing on an operational perspective, 7K good to net up for the month, and 10K for the year. So if you look at the year to date, is that from last year, interesting, what's changed, whatever it is that they're doing, obviously is doing better, whether it's drop-ins, whether it's just better management of the facility, more efficiencies there. But I just thought that was interesting that environment, which, a lot of times wasn't a big revenue generator, at least is performing very well to budget. All right. Anything else on tennis? All right. Platform tennis is the next one. No real issues there. Pretty standard. It's pretty, it's pretty straightforward going, from month to month and year to year on this one. Any questions on platform tennis? I know it seems like we're blowing through these pretty quick, but December is kind of a quiet month with regard to, a lot of operations. And, when I don't see a large change, or any significant anomalies, in the reporting, then it's kind of like, okay, for lack of a better term, business as usual. All right. Next item is aquatics. Again, in review, I've seen no real significant changes month to month or, this fiscal year. I will say that, again, me being a year to date, comparison from the previous year is one of the things I tend to focus on. And if you look at the net op from, year to date for this year, versus year-to-date for last year, you'll notice a significant difference there, which is actually not too bad. I mean, year-to-date actuals were 20, what is it? 25K better than budget, but a little bit down from last year. So any other questions on aquatics? All right, combined golf ops. And just, there's a lot of information here. One of them is, pluses and minuses. It's like, here's a question. Why did the, if you look, it's like 10 grand less in wages and benefits this month, Now, again, was it because we were closed a couple of days? Was it weather related, so on and so forth? Again, not an issue, just, an observation. I mean, it's good that we were saving money on that, but, certainly, did we lose anything because we were saving money? But again, and you point out, you look at the year-to-date numbers, we're $186,000 better than budget on the year-to-date net op. So, that's a good thing. And if you look at the year-to-date actuals, here's an interesting one. If you look at the year-to-date actuals, okay, which is 653, and the year-to-date last year 554, does that tell us something?
See, that's important.
Yeah, that's right.
That's important analysis. The budget is just to me, it's just a management tool. That's all it is. But when you start to see stuff like that, where actual revenues are up and expenses are flat, you're doing well, right, Frank? I mean,
sure.
you know how to run a business.
$100,000 ahead.
Yeah, right,
Last
exactly.
year, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess it's having come from the corporate world, some sort of management analysis to say, well, what is it that we're doing well? How do we capture that? We'll call it intellectual capital, of understanding how our business works, and how do we make sure that we sustain it, and document it, make sure it's preserved going forward.
Right.
It'd be a nice piece of information to capture so that the association understands what it's doing right. So
Be interested to see how much the number of plays from last year to this year, whether it's
That's good.
community plays or
That-
outside plays, or who's playing.
Yeah, that's right.
Evidently, they made a lot more people play golf this year than they did last year.
Mhm.
If we're $100,000
That's a good
ahead.
deal.
Well,
So-
I think that would be really good information to have, because, again, not wanting to focus on, negatives, but, we're going to put a pretty significant amount of money into the
Oh, yeah.
irrigation system.
Sure.
And I think the play and everything else warrants it, not only just because it's 50 years old and we certainly need it, but, there are people out there going to, sort of complain and say, well, look how much money, what do we do? We say, look, we look at last year and look at this year, look how much the better management of that golf course has provided revenue for the association. So, having that information, going above and beyond that, just kind of go, well, what are we doing better? Well, let's make sure we, and I would promote that to the membership. It's like, look what management and the administration is doing to our environment to help make it run better, and so to kind of quiet a little bit of that negative,
Right.
or maybe even, dare I say, people that might be misinformed of, what's going on. It's better to give, and educate than it would be to just kind of speculate.
And we bring that up every month at the golf advisory meeting,
Mhm.
that we're doing so much better, and talk to Beckelman and, promote his policies. And it's working.
Yeah. Don, were you going to say something?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, golf ops. Next item is the Clubhouse Grill. Speaking of golf, pretty standard. I mean, they were a little bit under in net operating. If you look, almost 4K, negative to what the budget was. But again, going back to year-to-date actuals versus year-to-date last year, we're right on
Same,
cue.
yeah.
I mean, it's, that's the telltale number. I tend to look at things that are, on an annual basis, because, things are cyclical. We're in very seasonal kind of an amenity. You can't expect an outdoor pool to make money in December,
From the meeting we had last week with the new people running the thing, looks like they're going to be open more, which should help in the bottom
Yeah,
line.
from that town hall meeting.
Right.
It's really, that's intriguing. I mean, because, what would be one of the reasons you'd close? Well, because there's no customer, there's
Nobody
no
there.
business there, right? And you're still, you're still having to handle the expense for staffing, okay?
Right.
The idea would be, I would think that, there might be some, I don't know, promotion to, advertise the fact that it will be
Mhm.
being a golfer, or
Yeah.
I'm sorry, being someone who plays golf.
Yeah, right. Me too.
Having it open in the morning for coffee. We tee off
Yeah.
early, have a
Mhm.
cup of coffee in the morning would be nice. And, matter of fact, my wife even and several others play in the afternoon. And by the time they get done, the place is closed.
Closed, yeah.
They say, boy, we'd like to stop in maybe for a bite to eat or, or a beverage. The extended hours is going to be, it's going to be interesting. And
Yeah.
I'm hopefully wishing for 100% success on that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's my thoughts on it. I'd like to see it work out better. I've heard a lot of people talk about not being open this time, that time, whatever time.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be, it's going to be certainly a benefit. But yeah, going back to, even though, we were talking about this, net op is, about where it needs to
Pretty
be.
close,
So we'll
yeah.
see. Actually be interesting, again, being kind of analytical. I want to look at these numbers and really want to compare, to next year.
Mhm.
It's-
Yeah, that's
and
the
want,
thing.
want to see that,
Most-
hey, there's a tangible
I'd
improvement
like to
here
see a
because,
year
yeah, you got it. You got it.
ahead of where we are right now, yeah.
Okay. Anything else in Clubhouse? All right, Beach Club. It's pretty standard, not much change from last month. Really, it's just more accounting there than anything else. And the same thing for beach parking, again. Although I would just want to ask John and his team that you look at the revenue side of it. He put 11,924, and I'm sure that's I'm guessing, but I'd like to think that's just a timing issue where they're just spreading the revenue out over a period of time to make it I guess
Yeah.
just because that's the style, the accounting principle behind it. But anything clearly, again, somebody might go, how did we make $11,000 last month? when it's
Nobody's closed.
closed? Answer is it's an accounting procedure that they're doing. And so,
Yeah.
which is fine. Spread the revenue over time. So, anything else on beach parking? Yeah. Okay. Yacht club. I mean, it's repeating that, it's not doing as well as we had hoped. A little bit, 11K more in, decline in net op this month. And then if you look at
I wonder if the new vendor is going to stay open in the yacht club.
I don't
Out of
know.
curiosity, I don't know that they'd make any money, but it's just curious.
I'm one for, I think that somebody new comes in, I call it operationalizing it. They have to look at what it is that they've got. They've got a standard, environment, a standard understanding of the environment, but there's nuances when you actually have feet on the ground, within that operating environment that they're going to look at, they're going to
Yeah,
study,
they gotta
they're going to
learn.
adjust, and so on and so forth. So to make a blanket statement that, oh, we're just going to stay open all the time. Well, no, and I wouldn't expect you to. I would expect you to say, we're going to take a look at the possibility of staying open more often, but it may be detrimental,
Well, I mean, I guess where I'm coming from is we got a guarantee of 380,000.
right out of the lease. Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah.
I mean, so and then above and beyond that, we get a cut. I don't know what it is of
Was
the
it
profits.
6%?
6%.
Is it 6%?
6%?
Is
Yeah.
that what it is?
The food sales, yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if it would really make a difference in opening or closing or Frank.
Frank.
Just way open on your vehicle.
Must have pushed the wrong button.
Right.
Gotta go push the right button.
Go close your hatch.
It's okay. I was trying to push buttons with my gloves on. That didn't work real well.
Yeah.
I mean, you get my
No,
point.
yeah, well,
I mean,
if you look at it,
yeah, I mean, you may service 4 or 5 people for 2 months.
yeah. Well, again, I think with I guess the benefit to Ocean Pines is we carry no risk for that.
Bingo.
Okay.
I
So
mean,
the idea is that, it's a business decision for the new operator to say, I'm going to decide to stay open in the month of January, let's say
Right.
for argument's sake. Well, then that really, there's no burden to Ocean Pines, which is,
Right.
you know, which is kind of nice,
Right.
now, want to argue, well, then, if they're not making any money, that's, well, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because we've got that guaranteed lease income and, it sounds a little, kind of unprofessional, but at the end of the day, the rest of the money is bonus, but that's bonus money coming off of the food sales. So the food sales go up 15% next year. Well, we'll make, some percentage of revenue based on, sales. And
Yeah.
can you attribute that to being open more days, of the year than you had in the past? I don't know, maybe, but that's what the business guy needs, our renter will, decide from a business perspective how that's going on. So anyway, all good.
Oh, good. Yeah, I can do it from inside.
Oh,
Didn't even have to go out.
Yeah, at least it's not snowing out there. So, okay, so any other thoughts on the yacht club? I mean, there's not a whole lot we can do right now, but it's just it
Yeah.
happened over time. What can I say?
It is what it is.
Okay. Next item is marinas. Again, it's kind of, not open. It's a quiet time for the marinas, so I don't see any real issue there. Any questions on marinas? Pretty
Mm.
self-explanatory. Okay, next item is reserves. What the? I had one. Oh, new capital. It was 15K for new capital. Just wanted to make sure I understood what that was. Under the capital summary, I was looking for it. And I'll just ask John, it's not a big number, but although if you look at the summary sheet on, the capital summary, the next page over, where it has the details. If you look at the actuals versus the budget, I don't know if there's any issue there because in the grand totals, we are 350K under budget. Again, budget being a
Mhm.
educated guess. But in other words, if you look at the replacement, it was 2.0 and the budget was 1.5, so that's $500,000 for 477. You look at the numbers, is that should that raise any flags? I don't know. There certainly wasn't any emergency spending, but it could be that just from a timing perspective, that's where it needed to be. And if the board said, hey, there's certain things that have to happen because of timing, because of availability, then they went ahead and spent the money. I would just want to make sure that that differentiation between the actuals and the budget for the replacement and the new capital reserve, is quantified. So if you guys agree, I was going to send a question to John about that or the team. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. And then, there's all the details there. On the, on all the spend. So I didn't see anything, but yeah, and this is the year to date, it's cumulative, just gets added to month by month, so it's no big deal. So we are good there. All right, next item is the balance sheet. Just, interestingly enough, we get just short of $1 million more worth of total assets this year than we did last year. Just short of $1 million. The only somebody asked me a question about about bad debt, and quite frankly, I don't think it needs to be discussed because if you look at year-to-date actuals and year-to-date last year, they're pretty much in line. So I think that's pretty standard. I know some people have, in the past have, sort of had a question about that, but at the end of the day, if it's consistent with the business year to year to year, and it's not causing any kind of, financial burden, then, I would say let the operations folks handle it the way they've been handling it, because, it doesn't seem to be an issue on the surface, and I don't believe it's an issue any further than that.
Hey Doug,
So-
are the bad debts, those are unpaid association dues?
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I'll tell you what, it's because I don't want to misspeak and leave something out, or, so why don't I'll take that to John and his team and just say, hey, Budget and Finance just wants to make sure that we understand what's included in the bad debt allowance.
Sounds
Okay?
good. Yep, and I actually had another question I forgot to ask when we were on the reserves. I've seen
Okay.
it a couple times. What's our relationship with the casino? I see the casino funds and, I just didn't know, do they make grants to us that were agreed to?
Yeah, it's not a grant, it's a disbursement every year. It was, at one point, I think, Jack, when you, way back when, it was only like 350,000.
350 was the number I remember.
Yeah, and
a while
Frank, it was
ago.
when you and I were on, it was 350, and I think it's been increased, but yeah, it's an annual, I don't want to call it a contribution. Well, it's an annual contribution. Okay, that's worked out between the casino, the association, and the county.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
450 was the number I saw
Yeah,
recently. Yeah.
yeah, okay. Hold on. All right. Okay, next thing is the cash and investments layout. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We're
Doug, I do have a question on this.
sure.
Like, who, is this the responsibility of the finance committee to make decisions relative to this, or is that the finance department that makes?
No,
the
it's the
decisions?
finance department.
Okay,
Yeah, they report on it, we look at it, and if you kind of go back, you can make a kind of a rough correlation between, this and the F01 resolution, just kind of just make sure that things are on par with what's going on. And I remember a couple of years ago when I was on the board, one of the things that John and his team suggested and we supported was to diversify a little bit and have deposits in more than one banking institution. I think that was a very good choice on their part, a very good decision, because it keeps us, kind of, I guess it reduces the risk associated with any single, financial institution and anything that may come of it. So,
yep,
yeah. So, again, Don, to answer your question, it is an operations, a finance team issue to decide how good or how they want to deal with the banks.
got it. Okay, sounds good. And it's 15 million bucks and the reserves are like 8 million or so, and the difference is just operating cash. Is that what? I saw the reserve summary says the balance is 7.9 and the investments say 15. So there's 7 million that's just in operating, or am I
Yeah,
reading right?
it's available. It's not committed yet. And again, that goes back to let finance decide what it is that they want to do with it. So again, one of their responsibilities is not to only report, but to decide how best to, manage that monies. And, we as a budget and finance committee are just looking over top of it and saying, okay, we either understand and support it, or we would question it. And then again, we're not a decision-making authority. We would question it to kind of have them consider, a change if they felt it was necessary.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on the investments? The total cash, we're in CDARS, Taylor Bank, Bank Ocean City. All right. Next item is the membership report. Kind of gives a layout. That's pretty standard stuff there. All right, seeing none. I think we're through that. The supplemental reports, I'm going to beg the indulgence of the committee, is that those supplemental reports are terrific. There are a lot of detail, but I have been one to say that it supports what's given in the summary that that's posted on the website. So I tend to not, unless I saw something specific in the summary report that would either raise a red flag or at least bring something up to question, I'm not sure we need to spend a whole lot of time at all, quite frankly, at all on those supplemental reports. Because nothing, in my opinion, nothing came up in the summary reports that would say, wait a minute, we better go look at the detail. Any concerns about that approach? Okay, all right, so we will just, we have, just so everybody knows, we do have, the committee has the supplemental reports in case they ever need to be referenced. All right. That being said, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is a review of the resolutions F01, 02, and 03 that was requested by the the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee. So a little bit of background, we've had these for the better part of 2 weeks, and I've asked the committee members to take a look and, shed their, or provide their opinions and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, let's take F01 as the first one. Okay. I reported back to the committee that all I did was reformat it because the sections were kind of misnumbered and they weren't organized. And so my recommendation was basically just to reformat it so it's, cleaner, reads better, but there's no material changes to F01.
Can I address a couple
Yeah.
of things?
So that's what we're here for. Yeah.
And I just want, I have no horse in this race. I want everybody to understand this, but I just want everybody to appreciate and understand what they mean by collateralizing our deposits with U.S. agency securities of investment grade. That's probably, with these local banks, that's Federal Home Loan, Federal Farm Credit. I just want to remind everybody that there was an agency, or still is, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They're federal agencies, and they were supposedly supported by the United States government. And the value of those agencies went from triple digit to single digit, down to $2 a share because of the crisis in 2008. If you recall, it was primarily mortgage oriented. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were mismanaged. They were poorly managed. And they started to open up the floodgates as far as high risk loans are concerned. Well, you know that, Frank. You were in the home building business. So it was a boon to, originators and, and home builders, but eventually it caught up with us. I'm not saying that's going to happen in Federal Home Loan or what have you. Where I came from, the old bank was First National Bank. It's now M&T. M&T just basically took over the operation of First National. And my interaction was with the deputy treasurer of the state of Maryland. We were depository for the state of Maryland. And any monies that were swept out of an account or invested short term were secured not by agencies, but by repurchase agreements, which were short-term treasuries that the bank had to hold in their portfolio for capital requirements, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that it's mentioned here that any deposits can be insured by federal agencies as well as government securities, short-term government securities. I just want to let everybody know when we're talking about U.S. agency securities and investment grade, we're talking about something that is different than a short-term treasury, 30-day treasury, an overnight treasury, a repurchase agreement. And John Viola knows exactly what I'm talking about. He knows exactly what what a repurchase agreement
Mhm.
is. So just something to consider.
Well, I mean, if you know, from what you're saying though, it doesn't sound to me like leaving the verbiage the way it is puts us at any risk. You know, but it does put the onus on the
but we
finance
got,
department to manage.
and I want to make sure everybody understands the risk.
Yeah.
That's all. Not that's all.
Yeah.
So
No,
I don't know. Look, guys, I'm new to this. I mean, I haven't been around this in what? Quite a few years, 9 years or something like that. So I don't know how we're securing funds.
Yeah.
I'm not into it anymore.
right.
But the date of this thing is 2016 is when it was about cycling off. And it was a bugaboo that I had back then. And I tried to tell everybody agency securities are one thing and government bonds or treasuries or something else.
Well, how about this? Suppose we, as a committee, pose this issue with the finance team and just say, help us, understand, that, where our risk profile is on this. Okay. We're not recommending any change.
It might be perfectly
Yeah.
well organized and well done today, but I'm in the dark. I don't know. I don't know how it's done.
Frank, what do you think?
Yeah, that sounds like we should know
Okay.
how
Right.
we're securing our funds.
My only
And-
comment would be, what funds are we securing? I'm confused on that. I see the cash and investment summary of $15 million. What else would we try to
I think
collateralize?
That's it.
Yes.
Well,
That's
because
it,
those
15
are
million.
all certificates of deposit, FDIC, treasury bills, that we don't have any exposure in the investments currently. I think the question is, if we're going to get that exposure through purchasing some type of government agency security versus what we have currently. But our exposure now, if the investment summary is correct, is zero. There's nothing on there. It's all FDIC, it's treasury bills, and it's that's it.
That's correct. It all
even-
goes through that Cedars program, excuse me, where there's several banks involved. So the exposure and finance gets a monthly statement as to which bank has how much dollars in it. And each one is insured up to that 250. If it goes up to 260,000, 10,000 of that is taken out and put into another CD.
Yep. So it would seem currently that we don't have any exposure to any
Right.
type of agency debt.
Yeah, CDARS, yeah.
So,
Other than the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, but I think
So-
if they go under, we probably have greater problems.
yeah. So, is it the committee's desire then, that we just kind of, think that, we believe that based on where we are right now, we are within the FDIC, insurance coverage, and that this,
Well,
or maybe we just ask.
no, yeah, exactly.
I mean, if well,
I want everybody to realize we're when we talk about FDIC, we're talking about trillions of dollars in deposits being insured by $700 million. So if the big thing hits the fan,
yeah.
FDIC it won't mean anything.
All right, so if the committee is in agreement, I will send a question, I'll include everybody, obviously, to John,
Well,
saying,
but-
help
but,
us understand the risk
uh,
position.
Addressing that issue, one of the things that I was curious about, and again, this is because I don't know how it operates. When assessments go out, all that money floods in very quickly, like within, weeks. You get a big,
Right.
flow of cash coming in. Do we have sweep accounts set up so that when that money comes in, it's swept out of the transaction account or, checking account and put into some sort of overnight security or 1 week security or something like that? Do we have that operation?
I would need to confirm with John. Yeah, I don't know if he handles that influx of cash any differently than, any other
And where
source
does it
of
go?
revenue. You know?
Yeah.
So,
Essentially, where does the cash?
So
go?
you know,
Okay.
it might be an interesting,
All right.
sit down and discussion.
okay, so,
It's called a sweep account. And it's cash management. Maybe they've had a cash management presentation from a big bank. I don't know how these, local banks
right.
operate.
all right. So I'll put together a question to send to John, but as it relates to this resolution, remember, let's get back on track here. We're talking about this resolution. And, is there anything in here that we believe, either needs to be updated, changed, removed? Other than certainly,
Well, see, that's the
Yeah,
point.
in other words-
That's the point. Maybe
let me finish.
maybe you guys or we as a group may come up and say, maybe we don't want our stuff secured by agencies.
Yeah,
And we want to eliminate that as an option.
Right,
Maybe we don't.
Yeah,
I don't
so
know.
the way the process works is like, let's look at it this way. We're going to send a question to John and the finance team. Okay, we're going to get it back. All right. And based on that, we can certainly make a recommendation above and beyond the bylaws and resolutions committee. We can make a recommendation that this be changed, do some more research, and then send it off and just say, all right, bylaws and resolutions committee, we want to make the following change to, in this case, F01, based on proposed change. All right. And then it goes through, a first reading, a second reading, and either it gets accepted or denied.
Right.
All right. So we don't have to make a decision today. So I would say, based on this discussion, let's send the question out to John and the finance team, and then we can proceed as we see fit going forward. Don, Bill, you okay with that?
I hope I'm
Yeah.
not stepping out of line there.
Not at all.
No, I think
Open
the
discussion,
question
Jack.
is good. I think the question is good and it's relevant. So I don't think you're out of line. I just wanted to point out currently that we don't have exposure, so we don't have to worry about it. But I think it's worth asking. And I've looked at several, like, I don't know if we have an investment policy statement for the association, but typically what I've seen is an investment policy statement that sort of spells it out in a little more detail. But I've never seen where it's said, it has to be a government agency guarantee. I mean, I haven't seen that language before.
All right. Okay.
Last one.
Yep. Please,
I don't mean to
Jack.
beat a dead horse.
This is why we have the
I
meeting.
understand,
okay?
I
This is- we-
understand.
We
But,
open and honest discussion
I
about everything.
think on my copy, it's item D, like the next to last item.
Yep.
And it just talks about this committee reviewing the overall, I guess, monetary health of financial institutions that we're dealing with. Conditions and qualifications of these financial institutions shall be reviewed at least annually by the Budget and Finance Advisory Committee, which will report their findings to the Board of Directors and the General Manager.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we do that? I mean,
I since I took over, we have not done that.
Okay.
So I appreciate you bringing that up. I think it's something we obviously need to do. So let's make that course correction and figure
No, I
out
don't-
exactly
okay.
what it is that and the timing associated with it. We could discuss a little bit more. I don't know that anything more than annually would be required. Of course, it would be a sort of a learning opportunity as well. I mean, with let's say administration change, at the federal government, does that affect our local banks in any way? Don't know, but so let's take that as a committee, as a charge, because we have not done, at least, I don't know if when Dick was the chair, I don't know if it was done back then, but at the very least, doesn't really matter. Let's take that as a charge going forward and decide as a committee when we want to do this.
Okay.
Fair enough? Bill, Don?
Okay.
Yeah,
How would it be done?
yeah, we had done it
Be done by-
once. And that was it at one time. And that was when the banks had problems.
The only, one of the issues is going to be that, and it may be okay, but the Cedars are all individual institutions. And so there's probably 40 banks here that need to be evaluated. It's not just the Bank of Ocean City, because the Cedars are debts of other banks. And so for us as a committee to do that evaluation, I think would be outside of our competency and probably the scope of the committee. I think we need to get some help if we're going to do that.
Bill, would it be appropriate to ask the Bank of Ocean City, in this case, in other words, focusing on the two banks, Taylor Bank and Bank of Ocean City, would it be appropriate for us to ask them as they distribute their CDRs across different financial institutions for that same information? Ask them if they do that. You know, do they do that analysis maybe they do it for us?
Yeah, possibly so. We can, I know this is more of the,
Well, they put out an annual statement, right?
Right.
And I guess that's where this is coming from. You're supposed to review an
Okay.
annual statement, but yeah, I mean, they're, I guess they're a state bank. Are they a state bank or anybody know? So if they're a state bank, they got state regulators, running around the
Right, but I
banks,
think-
looking at them on a regular
Right.
basis.
but the only thing I would say is that, again, back to the Cedars, because the Cedars are not BOC. And, we could ask them. I'd be more inclined to ask our auditors to include it as their evaluation when they look at our balance sheet and let them give us an opinion as to whether the Cedars pose any risk for the association. I think it would be difficult for us and quite a liability for us to express an opinion on 40 Cedars and then have one blow up on us, even if they are FDIC.
Okay. All right, so tell you what, based on this discussion, let me summarize what I think it is we do. We'll circulate it amongst us and decide, how best to move forward. All right.
Yep.
All
I
right,
think the
timing
comment,
wise.
I'm glad the comment was brought up, by the way. Thank you for doing that. I think that this is a critical one that we probably need to look at because the risk
Okay.
is probably low in terms of it happening, but the dollar amount could be great if it did.
Okay. Bill, Don, anything else? Frank?
And that was my
Okay.
question, is how do we do this? And let the banks do it for us, essentially.
Yeah.
Let them do the research and then present that back to us, and then we have to
Yeah, and
evaluate
I'd be
that.
interested in what's the fiscal year for each one of the banks. Are they the same? Just, it's
Mhm.
kind of timing
Maybe
wise.
even make a presentation.
Could be.
Send somebody in, make a presentation to us to go over that report. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's how much how far you want to get into it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah. All right. Well, like I said, this is conversation gets things started.
Right.
So I'll
Mhm.
We'll see where it goes.
see where, yeah, exactly.
See
We'll see
where
where
it
it goes.
goes,
So I'll put
right.
together something for us to review, and then, take any action we feel is necessary. Because again, this isn't a kind of a board or a operational GM side of it. This is kind of us saying, we're based on this resolution, we have to take a certain amount of action. So I think we're fairly open to, but of course, I'd want to keep the GM and the board, apprised of what we're doing. Obviously, we don't do it in a vacuum. We'll just go,
Absolutely.
guys, we're going to go out to this bank. We're going to ask them for the following information, yada, yada, yada. Okay. All right. Anything else on F01?
Doug,
Monica, go ahead.
would you suspend Robert's rules? You can go out to the Federal Reserve website and they have a statistical release page and list the banks and things like that. So that's one place you can start to kind of start looking around for those ratings on the banks.
Monica, can I ask a favor?
Sure.
Could you please send me an email with that information, okay? That I can
Yes.
share. Well, actually, send it the whole committee. If you got everybody's email address, send everybody that information. We can start looking at it.
Okay, I sure will.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Anything else on as far as the verbiage on F01? I know we basically now have a couple of things we need to do, but let's get back to kind of the the content, the terms and conditions here in F01. Anything else? All right. Let me summarize. It looks like we're going to be sending a question under section 3A2. Okay. We're going to send a question to the operations staff, the finance team. But other than that, no changes in anything are recommended at this time. Is that correct?
I think
Is
so.
that what I'm hearing for?
Yeah, I
Right.
have one thing. That date, as I think Frank had mentioned on FO1 was March of 2016. And FO2 is December of 2008. Should this be an annual review?
That's for the bylaws and resolutions committee. They have a list of all the resolutions and their review dates. So,
Okay.
it's,
All right.
it's up to them. Actually, it's funny if you look down at the bottom, look who was on the bylaws and resolutions committee chair back in 2016.
I saw
That would be yours truly.
Yeah.
So, So it's been a while. So, yeah, good question, Don. Now and of course, besides that, we as the Budget and Finance Committee, can make a recommendation at any time, for it to be reviewed. If something comes up, we take a look at it and say, hey, guess what? We're being a little more proactive, and we say, okay, we have a concern about certain things that have changed. We want to take another look at this, and we're making the following recommendation. We can go to the Budget and Finance Committee, or I'm sorry, the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee, and say, we want this looked into. We want to bring it up to operation. So, it's not just held to hard and fast to a schedule, but again, it hasn't been reviewed in a while. So, or in case, the other thing too is if in fairness to the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee, could have been that it's been reviewed, no changes were required. Therefore, the document still has 2016 on it because no changes were made. But, it could have been reviewed in 2022, So,
Oh, really?
yeah, be advised. Yeah, sure. You don't have to, there's nothing that says reviewed. The only time it gets signed is when the board approves the resolution.
Oh,
And then the
gotcha.
Bylaws and
Yeah,
Resolutions
yeah.
Chair goes, okay, I do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Because remember, this could have been reviewed, the same thing with the one in 2008. It could have been reviewed already. And because there's no changes, the document remains unchanged, hence
Gotcha.
the date at the bottom remains unchanged. Okay, so one final shot. Anything on FO1? Other than, like I said, we're going to have that question. We are recommending no changes to the content, the terms, the conditions, and the verbiage in this particular resolution. Okay, that's one takeaway. All right. Next one is F02. Okay, as I sent to you guys, I added a slight change in section 2. I just added the words of the bylaws. It referred to section 904. I just added of the bylaws. In section 6, all I wanted to do was kind of reach out to both because we're going to send this back to the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee, but I also want to touch on the board requirement to basically say under 6A, September of each year, that, that it says the Board of Directors meets with the Budget and Finance Advisory Committee and the General Manager to discuss our overall budget guidance and goals. Quite frankly, I can't ever remember that happening. And so, that's not a bad thing. If you see my comment is, consideration should be given to determine if this meeting is a requirement or an option. All right, so I think
It's a good point.
I kind of like it as an option. All right, I don't believe it's an absolute requirement because we do have, the process that's in place right now, I think works very well. The GM and his team create the budget, it comes to us, I don't know that, and on top of that, we as a committee in September send the budget guidance every year. We send that document. We sent it this year too. So the idea is, I believe this is already taken care of by the fact that we as a committee meet, we have our budget guidance, and we send that to the GM and the Board of Directors. So I'm just kind of looking at 6A going, I'm not sure this is really needed or it's a requirement. Thoughts, comments?
I just took it that you remember you keep referencing sitting in the old clubhouse with our top coats on because it was so daggone cold. That's what I thought this meeting was about. That's what I recall. There were some BNF guys sitting in the audience, and the board all sat around and went through every single
Right, but if you look
item
at,
in the budget.
if you notice at the beginning, it says September of each year.
I
okay?
got it.
We
Yeah.
meet as a committee in December.
Yeah, I
And,
know.
and
I know.
the board meets in January, no, I'm sorry, we meet as we get the budget books by the end of December. We meet at the beginning of January, and the board meets at the beginning of January. So hence my whole point about, is this even relevant?
Right.
My recommendation is we strike it. All right, or, we just, if you want to make it vague and just say the board of directors will meet, as necessary,
Has the option to meet.
I mean, maybe, so one of the things I like to do is I like to get a lot of input. So the idea would be, maybe we make a recommendation to say, look, we don't know how relevant this is. Send it back to the board
That's good.
and the GM, send it back to the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee and go, guys, as a group, we don't understand the relevance of this. And it may be more problematic than it is, kind of a,
Sure.
resolving an issue. So I just, unless you guys think differently, Bill, Don,
That sounds
That's fine.
fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
okay, all right. So I'm going to send, when I send this back to the Bylaws and Resolution Committee, I will also send it over to the board and to the operations team and say, help us, give us your feedback on this one, but make sure we understand exactly what's going on.
Okay.
Okay, in section 6C, just some wording changes, just, some general grammatical cleanup. If you look at, just added the word with, prior to, the beginning of the fiscal year, which is, instead of saying prior to beginning the fiscal year, they left the word of out, okay? Then in section 7A under reporting, just again, grammatical, board of directors with, I added the word with. But I also added for consideration in the 1 to 3rd sentence, this report is also posted on the association's website. I think that's relevant, in the sense that there's a lot of, we can't, even though it's not the final one, it's the, I'm sorry, it is, it's the monthly report, and it's reported on the website. I just think it's important to note that because that's another thing. And again, I believe that our website is being used far more extensively than it has in the past, because now people are starting to realize it's a nice vehicle for information. So the idea is, I think we should acknowledge that. So that's my, it's my recommendation there. And then in item C, I just changed the word members to membership because it's, a little more. Anybody else have any recommendations on F02? All right. Are we good with the changes I proposed?
Yeah.
All right. And so my takeaway on this would be to, again, as I said, I'll send the question over to the board, the GM, and the Bylaws and Resolution Committee about 6A. Okay? Okay. All right. The next one we were asked to look at was F03. So now we have a few. There was, all I did in section 3C, I just wanted to get a confirmation. I think it's important that we get a confirmation that the $2,000 amount is still consistent with what the GM and his finance team, want to have. All right. So, the expenditure, replacement expenditures above 2,000, are the ones that get addressed. So any thoughts on that one? Do you think is it worthwhile to just leave it alone? But whenever you put a dollar, see, I'm one of these ones. You ever put a dollar number on there? You just, I think sometimes it's fluid. All right.
Yeah.
If you, over 10 years, will that number change? I would bet yes. Okay. Heck, we did it a couple times when I was on the board where, based on recommendations from the finance team, tracking assets, we upped the number from like, $2,000 to 5,000. I think it went back to 2,000. But the idea of tracking fixed assets, and so I just think we should just ask, is it still relevant? It is great. Just move on. All right. In section 4, it's just I'm a little bit on the I write a lot, so the word account was missing. This reserve, it should say this reserve account. So I added the word account across. Again, just a grammatical change. And then the last one, and this was, and I give credit to Bob Hillegrass, who's not here today. Oh, by the way, Randy, just so you guys know, Randy had a outpatient surgery today, so he's not here. Bob Hillegrass had reported, like 2 months ago that he wasn't going to be able to make the January meeting because he's on a cruise. All right, so those two had excused absences. But Bob, prior to the meeting, sent in his recommendation on F0 through section 5. Well, he said his comment was that we have to make sure that we are in compliance with the Maryland Homeowners Association Act 11B 112.3 regarding the reserve study requirements, and he's absolutely right. So I took that and based on Bob's recommendation, I put it in section 5, under the general manager, and basically, saying that, hey, it's somewhere. Now, I don't know, this is the absolute perfect spot for it, but, or maybe either from the operations team or from the bylaws and resolutions committee, they might find a better spot within the document for it. But at the very least, I put, added section 5 and basically said ensure compliance with Maryland Homeowners Act, section 11B-112.3 regarding reserve study requirements, just so that it is recognized that we acknowledge the fact that that's out there and that reserve study will affect us. I know John has shared with me on a couple of occasions that, when we get this next reserve study done, what's
When
it
is
gonna
that?
be? I think it's going to be like a year from now, like next November, something like that.
Well, I mean, I downloaded his link and printed. I like to steal from print. And one of the things it talks about it outlines what our responsibility is. This paragraph, and I'm on number 3 of this paragraph applies only to homeowners association established in any county other than Prince George's and Montgomery, which probably tells you a lot about the people who wrote this thing, before October 1, 2022. That's us.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we,
Yeah.
If the governing body of a homeowners association has a reserve study conducted on or after October 1, 2018, the governing body shall have an updated reserve study conducted within 5 years after the date of the reserve study and at least every 5 years.
Yeah.
So we in compliance with that?
No, we actually did. They did. He had Doug Green's firm in like 2020 or 2021 to do another reserve. I think they called it Reserve Light, but they did do an update to the reserve study because I know there were things that were
Then
updated.
we're in compliance.
So we are in compliance.
Yeah, we're in
Yeah,
compliance.
so, but again, I think it's important to, as Bob, and I agree with Bob in his recommendation that this should be in the resolution and that, kind of keeps it,
I agree.
right?
Stay current.
Yeah. Bill, Don,
I'm good with that. Yes.
Yep, all good. Yes, thank you.
okay. All right, so any other changes to F03? Oh, I'm sorry, last one, me being the kind of somewhat anal retentive qualities. Under section 10, the last sentence says, unless approved by the board in accordance with the association's bylaws, and I put sections 803 and 804. Okay, just because that's where they are.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay. Okay, so those are the 3, and thank you for your input, gentlemen. So the takeaway is I will send these changes to F03. We can certainly change it to well, actually, what I'll do is I'll send all the questions out to everybody, and then we'll have that open dialogue. And then the idea would be we're going to send it over to the bylaws and resolutions committee after we get answers to these, with any other changes that we might want to recommend, and then they can move forward with it. Okay, everybody good with that?
Yep.
All right.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda was to discuss the proposed F06. Okay, to bring guys up to speed, I think I sent in my email that we had if what's posted on the website right now is a convenience fee resolution. It's not numbered. It's not a problem. It's just it's not numbered, and it's something that the association has had on its books for a couple of years. My recommendation was to make it an official resolution. And, we kind of we just talked about it. It wasn't super important right now, but I figured while the bylaws and resolutions committee, has asked us to take a look, at a couple of resolutions, why not, discuss this one. So what you guys have in front of you is basically, a proposed F06. And all I did was take the existing resolution in its current document form and just reformat it into a resolution form. It's all. No changes to the verbiage, to the content or anything else has been done. So that's, I just kind of want to discuss with the committee, is it something we think warrants us moving forward? To have it put in a resolution or to just leave it alone, and leave it, posted the way it is? Thoughts?
Good. I think it's good.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Yeah, I don't see any problems with doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're comfortable in basically making a recommendation to the bylaws and resolutions committee and to the board that the current verbiage, in that convenience fee resolution that's posted on the website is just reformatted with no material changes to it, so that it's in the form of a resolution and a resolution F06. Is everybody okay with that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yes.
All right.
Mhm.
So it's done. We'll move forward that way. All right. Next item on the agenda is general committee comments, discussion, thoughts. Floor is open.
Is the chairman responsible for providing coffee for the group when these early meetings?
I found no documentation in our governing documents that actually stated that.
I see, okay.
That could
I
be,
got
However-
that could be F07.
Any other, Bill, Don?
I'm good.
Nope, good
All
meeting.
right,
Thank you.
Frank?
Good.
Okay, well, thank you, gentlemen. Just no other questions. I've got nothing else. Thanks for your help. I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.